In this video, I want to talk about erasing. Seems like a simple topic, but there are some finer points that I've learned over the last year or so that I'd like to share with you. Uh, Number one is the markers, and I've tried many different brands of marker, and the one that I have settled on as the best is something called a Quartet EnduraGlide marker, and this is a fine tip EnduraGlide. I'll also mention that not all colors in a pack work on the LightBoard. Some colors you might think should show up actually don't, and others that you didn't think would show up do, and you have to sort of test them in your own studio to see what shows up the best. I'll illustrate here with an orange, and I think the orange shows up pretty well. I've also got a green that seems to show up pretty well, and my pink is not quite as bright and maybe looks a little bit more like red, but you can see there's a little bit of a difference in these markers. Some of the other colors don't show up at all, and you'll basically just give those markers to someone else who has a whiteboard if you bought a pack. So check that. Make sure you find a good color. Generally speaking, I've had good experience with yellows, greens, and oranges of most brands of dry erase markers seem to show up well. But erasing is really what I wanted to talk about. And to erase during a class or during a recording session, what I like to use is in fact just a regular paper towel. So I'll usually start a class with a clean sheet of just regular paper towel. Just make sure there's no dirt on it or anything. And when I erase, I actually kind of roll a little bit and kind of lift the material, sort of lift the marker material off the board as I'm erasing. And with a little bit of practice, you can make it so that you can erase quite perfectly. Doesn't always happen though, and I'll tell you what to watch out for. If you write something and then very quickly try to erase it, this can happen. And the same thing happens on a whiteboard. It's important to let the dry erase marker dry, and it only takes a couple of seconds, but try to avoid erasing or smudging fresh marker, because then you end up with a bit more of a challenge or a bit more of a problem, sort of completely eliminating that residue. The other thing I'll say about erasing is after you've filled a board with writing and you've erased it, or maybe you've done it a couple of times, you will have a residue from the markers left on the surface of the board. Or maybe you can see where you've erased some things, and maybe I can try and do some more erasing to make it look like I've got some smudges here or something. Let's see if I can. If I do this, maybe I can kind of make a dusty location. Maybe I can see that better than you. If I turn up the brightness of my LightBoard, you can see a little bit better some of that residue from my erasing. What I like to do periodically, maybe after you've filled the board a couple of times, is to do sort of a pass with the microfiber cloth. And I'm not talking about microfiber cloths that you can buy. You can buy these in the dollar store. They kind of look like a terry cloth material, and they'll be advertised as microfiber. It's more like a fabric. That's not what I find works the best. What works the best are these microfiber cloths that are actually intended for cleaning glass or other surfaces in your home. And after they've been used a few times, they develop kind of a soft feel. And what I do is I wet this cloth under the tap, and then I wring it out. I wring it out as tightly as I can, and then I shake it a little bit so that the cloth itself is just damp. And then I leave it off to the side during my class or whatever I'm doing. And then after I've written on the board a couple of times, I do this. So I come along and I just remove that marker residue, and you can see where the dampness kind of shows up temporarily. And then as it dries, and it evaporates, I'm back to sort of a clean board again. And it's good to do that a few times. Let's say during a 50-minute class, you might do that 2 or 3 or 4 times, depending how much writing and erasing you've done. But as you can see, it only takes a few seconds. Let it dry, and then you're back in business. So that's a few notes on erasing. So erasing during class, I just use a clean paper towel, and then periodically I will rub it with the just damp microfiber glass cleaning cloth.